In the last interaction, I started off asking some questions, and we especially took off from the point when we were discussing that when the ultimate is so different from us in terms of parameters, such that we are talking about it metaphorically most of the time. How is it that the aspect of personality is something that is to be taken almost literally? And we explored that a little bit, reaching a point where you said that the inductive process takes us to a certain point. There are limitations to it, but the main thing is that you need to bring it to your own experience. That aspect, that ultimate, you need to make it your own experience, and that experience needs to be approached with the right kind of knowledge. And this knowledge mostly is man-made, so therefore it has some of its own limitations. And you gave an example about this knowledge that, for example, when I look at something under the microscope, it will not make any sense to me unless I have some prior knowledge about it. And we ended at a point where I was trying to say that that knowledge, in fact, is biased towards its applicability of what we are observing, not necessarily towards the fundamental truth of what's being observed. And that is in most science related things, that what we observe is towards oriented towards how to use it, how can we manipulate it. So the bias that I mentioned last time was not in the way, probably I think did not come across. It was mostly in terms of that it's selectively oriented towards a particular aspect of it. And if we inherit this notion of bias to the knowledge that we are talking about, um, I would like to give some examples. So let's say you gave an example about that people who try to attain to certain things within our own parameters, let's say certain attainment in medicine or other fields, they too need to take a lot of time, effort, involvement, dedication to reach a particular attainment. And whereas when people talk about God, they say that show me now, where I want to experience it now. So clearly, something that is beyond our parameters, if we want to achieve, we need to put in the hard work, the dedication, the involvement, the devotion, in order to reach that. But when we use a metaphor like the proof of the pudding is in tasting, there is a certain temporal bias, I believe, that is very implicit to this kind of a metaphor, wherein you feel that it is as easy or it is as simple as just scooping of a sweet and tasting it. It is that accessible. Similarly, when we talk about the metaphor of what is the best way to go to space or to know space, what is the best way to know space? So it is to go to space. I believe there is a little bias in terms of the direction there, because when I know that I want to know space, it is clear to me that I have to go up. I don't have to dig the ground. I don't have to go anywhere else. It is very clear to me how to do so. So if we project these two biases on our own knowledge that we are seeking, we may misunderstand certain aspects about it. Whereas we clearly know that it is something that requires a lot of effort and involvement, because we are transcending our parameters. At the same time, we are completely disoriented as to how to do so. And that selective projection makes these two aspects seem invisible. So, according to me, biased knowledge is composed of selective projections, making it gain credibility that might otherwise have been unfounded, effectively making us see what we want to see, as in science experiments, to feel motivated to take certain actions that may or may not align with our goals. It is biased towards directing human behavior, and in doing so, it may ensure its own presupposition, and it is dependent upon its presupposition. So, when I am in a situation that if I am dissociating with the metaphors that are projecting certain characteristics to the knowledge, let's say predictability of direction and time frame, i'm I have no awareness of the time it's going to take me. I have no direction to go, and plus I have no living examples, because I don't know what the signs of somebody who has attained to that would be for me to know that I can ask this person for reference, that how does it feel to reach there, is it actually working for you, will it work for everybody? So how can I proceed in such a situation?
Good questions. Let's first use the word clarify, because I feel we are using the word bias in a biased way. Let's say, for example, if I want to actually look at a star in the sky, so naturally, if I actually look at the like now the whole canvas of the sky, I'll be looking to spot that particular star which I'm after. It's not I'm biased towards it. It's just that otherwise, as you rightly concluded, it's just too broad. How will you actually narrow down your focus? By clearly mentioning about the parameters. Like for example, recently might have come across, recently means like probably like 3 4 months before, about how after shooting a rocket up in the space, the whatever that usually gets like parachuted down for a splashdown, um, SpaceX, it actually managed to actually get it and catch hold of that, right?
Land it, yes.
Now, correct. I have seen videos of Elon Musk even before that, and sometimes when they ask, you keep burning millions and millions of dollars in this to actually
Mm-hmm.
come up with something like this. He almost was tearing up when he says like, yeah, we are. It's difficult. Yes, we are
Mm-hmm.
burning out. How long? I don't know, but we will get there. And
Mm-hmm.
they got there basically. It's a big achievement definitely, in terms of reusability. The reason why I'm saying is, now if you go to that, even at that experiment, this is like the hello world equivalent of an experiment. Here they are actually spending something wherein they will go with the very very well defined parameters. They won't worry about for example, in this particular exercise which they have undertaken, fuel efficiency is not the major criteria here. For the part that came down, what is most important is whether it's coming. So whatever the station, like the two arms can actually catch. In order to do that, they clearly define the parameters of what they define as success here, which is fuel efficiency is not a problem. The time it takes to come there may not have been a problem either. They're not looking at it has to come. What they actually want is whether it is able to, the rocket or whatever part that actually coming down, it's able to fire at the right time. Is it able to slow down its pace with which it's actually coming? Can it actually come and place itself so that the launch station can actually catch hold? So basically, even in any experiment, they clearly define what the wins are, and which may not be in the bigger scheme of things. If they keep telling the same thing in another 10 years time, people may actually mock at them, saying, look at the wastage of the fuel, look at this, look at that, and everything. But that's not the point here. Point here is, first is, their focus here is this concept possible at all, wherein I don't need to use and throw, I don't need to keep on building everything from the scratch, can I reuse? And it's a big path breaking achievement, so to speak, right? So my point is, if I'm looking at the sky, given the enormity of the scope of it, I naturally need to narrow down. Just because I'm narrowing it down doesn't mean I'm biased. I'm open along the way. I'm open to actually see other things also. Okay. However, unless I actually narrow down the focus, I will totally get lost here. Okay, so that's not bias. Same way, if I'm actually going down under the microscope, there may be trillion other things I can observe, but I'm going there just to study a cross section of a leaf, maybe. That's not being biased. That's just being focused. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Now, proof of the
Okay.
pudding is in the eating. As I said, when we define unknown in terms of known, the idea here is not so much it's as easy as scooping it up and putting in your mouth. That's not the focus here. That's not the point of commonality here. Point of commonality here, when we said proof of the pudding is in the eating, is means you can hear me say this, but if you really want to understand the truth, then you have to go through that and experience it yourself. Okay,
Okay.
the word experience is important, not the ease with which I eat.
Okay.
Okay, that's not the focus there. Focus here is, the analogy is actually said to drive home the point that you can keep on hearing, we can keep on arguing, but
Mm-hmm.
unless you go through that experience. So experience is the analogy here, not the ease with which you take. Having said that, once you attain perfection, your experience, once the first time you actually attaining is very difficult. The example is given like climbing on top of a hill. Basically, if you take even bhakti, spirituality, I'll just use the word bhakti, I'll put it aside, I'll just say spirituality in general.
Sure.
It's an uphill task, and there are different stages how you can actually attain perfection. But it's not that once you go, let's say there are 9 stages. I'll talk about bhakti here. Let's say there are 9 stages in bhakti. There are, the first 5 stages are like a climbing on a slope towards the top of a hill. Okay, it's an uphill task literally.
Yes.
But once you go to that point, the last 4 stages are like a downhill ride. It's going to be very easy.
Okay.
Okay, just like if you take Roger Federer, initially when he actually started to play tennis, right when he was a small child, it was difficult for him. But he spent like a whole probably a decade like that, practicing, hitting, God knows how many balls. So much so that you might have seen a video of him they place a coke can on top of the head of one of his friends, and he's able to actually shoot it, just hitting the ball. He's able to actually hit it. That's how precise they are actually. But that comes by practice, probably like a decade, more than a decade. But the point is, whatever that was difficult for him initially became as easy as just throwing the ball and hit, and he can hit at any particular precise spot. How precise? He can be as precise as, you name a spot which is only as big as the space it takes for a coke can to stand. He can actually hit right like that. Okay, so point I'm saying here is that initially it is difficult. Initially he practiced. In fact, it's not easy. That's what makes him special. Okay, he mastered it. He has gone the distance. He has mastered it so much so that he's making it look as if he's just scooping out pudding and he's eating. It's
I
that
see.
effortless for him.
I see.
Understand? So when we attain perfection, it is possible there. But it's not going to be, your level of difficulty is not to keep on gonna grow exponentially. Not like that. Even in bhakti, it's given. Until you cross the midway point, it's difficult. But once you go past that, it's a downhill ride only. You'll go much more faster that way. I just wanted to clarify these two terms first of all. Now, secondly, in inductive process, as you rightly said, there is um, we have this reality, what we call as reality. Okay, we are thinking, we are waking up. Just like I always give this example, we take this body. One of the first lesson which Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita is, we are the soul residing within this body. We are not the body, but we are the soul residing in this body.
Okay.
We think we own this body, but there may be many other living organisms within my body. They also have their own ego, and they are thinking, hey, this is my body actually.
I see. Yes.
Understand?
Yes.
So there are many people who can actually claim ownership for this body, but the point is, at least in my sane mind, I believe I'm actually in my right understanding. Okay, that according to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says we reside in this body. So yeah, I own this body. I'm able to pretty much exercise control, at least externally, as much as I like, whenever I like. So I assume I am in full control of the body. Okay, so same way, reality wise, if we see, what we call as reality is, when we sleep, at that time, many times the experiences we go through is so realistic actually. Even according to law of karma, whichever we action we perform, even in dream, there is a certain karmic reaction that's associated with that. When I read that first time, I got so surprised, because normally we think, when we are sleeping, our general understanding is, okay, I'm not doing anything physically, and whatever impressions that I might have gathered during the day, or based on my past experiences, mind tends to actually play it like a movie basically. And it may create some situation. I may sometime even have realistic experience also inside the dream, but that's just a dream. Why should I actually bother? But scriptures take it to the next level, and they say that humans dreams, they are not capable of imagining anything on their own. In other words, even if you see something in your dream, point number one, or even if somebody says this is a figment of my imagination, even that has to be based on past experience, and that can be in this life, previous life, doesn't matter. Bhagavata Puran challenges that actually, that notion that humans have their tendency to create something on their own, could be in reality or could be in dreams. And Bhagavatam challenges saying, whatever a human can actually sit and think through and come up with some creative genius and produce something, they say it got to be within their experience in the past. The same experience in the past that they have got a more realistic experience of, and because of that experience, that impression got somewhere in their intellect, which is part of their memory. Even if they have actually taken multiple lives, they still carry that impression, and that may come with a certain permutation combination in their dream. Just like Prabhupada gives example, you have experience of a mountain, you have experience of gold, but in dream you may see golden mountain. It just mixes those two things, and it comes up with some mixed flavor basically. But whatever we are thinking, it's actually based on our past experience. That's point number one. Point number two, it doesn't stop there. even in the dream, if you, let us say, I kill a person, or if I think lustfully at a lady, for example, there is a karmic reaction for that. Now we may say, but I'm innocent, I had no control when I'm actually sleeping. Scriptures say no, that's not how it works. Given that whatever you experience or whatever your imaginative power is, or even in dream, it's based on your past karma.
Okay.
And something which was, in your conscious mind was a thought, probably a word or a deed which you have performed in the past. That impression went so deep within your consciousness, and in the dream your subconscious mind is actually projecting and showing you that movie.
Hmm.
You need to take ownership for this particular type of dream that's coming here, because you caused it in the
Okay.
past. That's how precise it goes. So it says, and so now it creates a situation. Now in the dream, you actually act something. There is a karmic reaction involved, to the same extent as if when I am awake, I'm, let's say, if I'm thinking lustfully at a woman, same, there is a certain type of karma that comes with that. Even intellectually, if I actually think something bad for someone, like, I feel bad, I'll go through the anxiety, for example, like that. So same level in dream also it's there, which means if we have to get proper dreams, or if we shouldn't get any dream at all,
Hmm.
we need to watch out for what I'm thinking even when I'm awake, quote unquote. But the question here is, the point, reason why I'm saying this is, which is dream and which is reality. We can change the reference point and it will be mind blowing, basically. As currently I'm thinking I'm talking to you, okay, but what I can't completely rule out is, this may be the dream, and when I, what I call as a dream when I'm actually sleeping, that may be reality also. I can argue that way.
Hmm.
Okay, like this is one thing you will see, like, between Vedic cosmology and modern science. In Vedic cosmology, it follows geocentric model, basically. Earth is in the center, sun goes around. But in modern science, we study the other way around. However, calculations will still be the same, because what we are talking here is just a relative distance, basically. So many places you will find overlap, and many places you will also see, they're completely going off tangent. The distance between the planets and everything, you will see that different. For example, moon is much more further than sun, according to Vedic cosmology. Sun
Okay.
is more closer to us. Modern science would say the other way around. Actually, moon is more closer to us. That's what you will actually see.
Okay.
So, but Vedic cosmology says moon is actually much more further away than the sun. We are more close to the sun than the moon, actually, according to the Vedic cosmology distance, if you actually, like, do a figure comparison there. But the point I'm saying is that it comes down to what reference point we are actually taking. As I said, there are many places where you will find the calculations overlap, because at the end of the day, if they are talking about the distance between Earth and the Sun, for example, it's just the relative distance. You can assume Sun is in the center and, Earth is going round, or you can assume Earth is in the center and Sun going around, basically. If it comes to distance between Sun and the Earth, you will find still the figures overlapping, because point I'm saying is, your reference point can be in reality, or your reference point can be in dream also, and you can argue either way to understand, which one is truth and which one is, like, kind of like illusion, so to speak. Okay, so coming to your question, that yes, it is very vast. Yes, we can't directly experience it, and I still hold my ground when I actually said it's not something that you get very easily. Just like, even modern day discovery, like, they say from the time you discover a medicine to the time when it actually comes to the market, they say it takes somewhere between 7 to 11 years, roughly, they say. Because they need to experiment, they need to try, test it and everything. This is just for, like, what, one Panadol, one Brufen. So here we are talking about something, first of all, which we are not used to as much as we are using our normal general, physical senses. Could be our eyes, ears, nose, and everything. This reality, which is much more higher than what our normal experience actually gives us, to go to that level to understand, we need to have that faculty to be able to observe, and we can't do with our normal blunt senses. However, these normal material senses can give us the means with which we can actually go and connect there. Example that's actually given for that, again, analogy, is, if you look at, how they, let's say, if they have to make a statue, they actually usually cast a mold.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
And then with that mold, what they do is they then dip it in the, the molten metal, basically, which they want to actually make a statue on. And then they melt out this mold, and then you get what you get is like, real hollow statue, basically.
Yeah.
So our gross senses is compared to this mold, basically.
Okay.
Okay, with this, we'll be able to acquire spiritual senses. After that, gross senses won't be needed. You may have it, but it will act exactly like a spiritual sense.
Okay.
But through you, just like how you need a mold in order to get a statue, similarly, you need gross senses, because that's the only faculty we have now. Now, with this only, now we have to follow the scriptures, follow the path to spiritualize each one of them, so that eventually we'll actually get the statue. From this, gross senses, mold as such is not so valuable. In that sense, gross senses is not so valuable. However, without the mold, you can't make a statue. Similarly, without these senses, we can't actually see the higher reality. That's not possible. Understand? Without these senses, gross, because that's all we have now. I can sit here and meditate. How long can I meditate? There has to be some cross reference. There has to be something for me to compare against, something with which I can relate. I can't sit and communicate my thought with you. At least technology hasn't come to that extent yet. Eventually they may, actually, but
Yeah.
it's not realistic. Just like I remember giving this class in one place, and I was quoting Prabhupada, where Prabhupada says, the easiest way to understand who your father is, you can go ask your mother. Without mother, it's practically impossible. One argument I received was, well, we can do DNA test. Then my counter argument to that was, well, world population is like what, north of 8 billion. Is it really practical to go and do DNA population, like DNA test for everyone? We can say theoretically, but even theoretically, it's not possible. You won't have the means. You can never say, I have actually tested every single person. That's also not possible. Nobody knows, like, where people are living, caves. So it's not argument's sake. On paper we can say, but something which you can't practice, if you put even that argument in paper, that's as good as a lie, basically. What's the point in speaking about a scenario which 100% of the time is not going to pass, basically? So
Yeah.
then, even realistically, we have our limitations, actually. That's what I'm saying. You can't make people line up. You can't make people to like, take their DNA test against, yours. What's the guarantee that you are going to alive? You understand? There are so many things that needs to line up in order for practically to do. Now, what's the easiest way to do? Just go and ask your mother. Your mother may point at dad. Now, as a second check, you can go for a DNA test. Okay, it will save you so much headache. You really want to be 100% sure if this is your dad? Okay, do a DNA test now. Not a problem. But reason why I'm saying is, even with the modern science, even with all facilities we have, we can mimic some things that's there spiritually. Prabhupada says eventually humans may actually have a technology with which they can even build a plane to go to spiritual world. Prabhupada has written like that in Bhagavatam,
Okay.
but not now. Currently, even Chandrayaan landing in moon is not supported by
Okay.
scriptures.
I see.
I calculated how long it took. I think they took 40 days or something. Even that, it's almost like they are going for a, if you look at, like, how Chandrayaan went, it circles around the earth. So it's not like it just went on a vertical trajectory. It didn't. It was just circling round and round and round and round. And then when it comes to moon, and then it starts to circle down, and then it, like, it comes down. That all the more supports this argument that, according to, if you look at the distance that is actually given, I think something like, my memory escapes me, something like 93 million miles or something like that. So even if you go vertical trajectory, it is still going to take you months, 4 months, 5 months, like that. Based on the velocity they actually give. I did actually do the calculation. Prabhupada does that calculation in Bhagavatam itself, based on what they said as the speed for Apollo, and they said they reached in 4 days. Prabhupada says impossible. For the speed which they are actually saying they went, at that time, Prabhupada says he calculates it as it will take 7 months to reach, if you have to go based on the calculation that's given in the Vedic scriptures. I calculated it when they mentioned about Chandrayaan with whatever information that's there. If my memory is intact, it came to about like 4 months. And that too, if they go on a vertical trajectory, not like going round and round. So Prabhupada said, at best, they might have landed in one of the nearby floating objects, having celestial bodies. Could be Rahu, could be Ketu, something like that. Prabhupada says it could be there. That was Prabhupada's conclusion in Bhagavata Puran. Okay, so point I'm saying is, but Prabhupada himself actually says, with the technology which they are actually working, eventually they'll come to a point when they may even be able to build something with which, what to speak of going to moon, they can even go all the way to the spiritual world also. But still, you can only go till the border. To enter in, you still need to have a certain body. You still need to have, like, currently one of the biggest hot topic is colonization of Mars. I mean, you can go there, you can live, but then you will be like a caveman only. No matter how much we try, like for our body, but then you need to put a lot of faith in theory of evolution. People may use that argument also. Eventually you will come. I will believe that if you show me humans in this planet, that they can behave like aquatics, just show me one. Or like I'm saying something simple, then I can actually, at least I can argue, I can convince my mind, okay, humans have evolved, they can live in waters, fine, they may able to adapt to the environment that's there, the in Mars or whatever planet. Now if you can't show me something here, it takes a definitely, as much as spirituality gets a challenge, I'll challenge it back, obviously. First show me that, and then we'll see. Like, I remember, I think I said that in, there was a meme during the COVID time. Forget about taking us to space. First, let me come out of my home. Please. Then we'll worry about that. First, use your technology to actually make me step out of my home. This is where we are, pathetically. So anyway, I'm just saying, Prabhupada's take was not on against science. Prabhupada himself says we use microphone, we use everything, but we use them to understand spirituality, not to challenge it. Now, you can question it. That's not a problem. You can be critical in your understanding. You don't need to blindly follow. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a word called Vidandavada. Vidandavada means arguing for the sake of arguing. Let's say if you go to a madman, right? Any argument you will give, they'll give a counter argument. But then there has to be a basis for that. Without the basis, it's very, very hard. Okay. I think I mentioned to you about what's his name, Neil deGrasse.
Yes, Neil deGrasse
He was saying, yeah, I have no problem with accepting
Yes,
God, but who created God? That's Vedantavada, basically. It's not like, I mean, he may be open, he's not, but nobody. That's my point. It's so obvious, but it escapes them. Now, when I come across personalities like them who I respect, even materially, even like many ways, genius, they're able to explain something in such a simple term, still escapes them. So these things, when I actually see, then I actually realize, okay, to understand this, it's not just enough to have knowledge. You need to have a certain consciousness. I'll give you a material example. Let us say you failed in an exam. I don't know if you have ever got experience. I've got quite a few in my school days. You fail in an exam, you come home, you'll be very dejected. Maybe you might have gotten some good chastisement from your dad, mom, whoever. Now they may bring the best your favorite dish right in front of you, right in the same evening. You may look at it, but you won't be able to enjoy. You may eat, but you won't be able to enjoy, even though nothing has changed. It's the same food, it's the same senses. You have eaten this so many times, it's your favorite, whole world knows. But what happened on that time is your consciousness is not in a mood, your mind is not in a mood of enjoying. Okay, so even though you may see the food, you are actually not seeing the food as you would normally do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It is there, right? And same way, crude parallel only. Scripture's viewpoint is what you see is not determined based on just what your eyes capture. It is based on your consciousness. Consciousness has a role to actually help you understand the truth. Just like, let us say you are searching desperately and looking for something, you may come across your friends. You won't even have time to look at them and greet their presence. You won't even dignify that because you are desperately looking, and some may feel offended also. You are not deliberately doing. You may even glance at there, but using your word bias, your eyes will be biased because it is waiting to see the object it has actually lost. Understand? So what we see is also determined by not just the tools that we have. And Vedic scriptures place great emphasis on this aspect, which is externally you are seeing with an eye, but they go inside and they say mind's eye,
Yes.
which is in like in a proper mental space. That is actually going to determine how clearly you can actually see something. Now, in Sanskrit, that word is actually given. You need to be humble. Humble here refers to. I was trying to explain that on university last week. Like, no, what is humility? Because that word keeps coming again and again in scriptures. I said, you see, humility means you are not overly elated. You are in a certain balance, a certain equilibrium. If you think about it, normal time, when you are very excited, that's the time you tend to upset other people. You may tease someone. People may not. You may, I don't know, pass a joke which is quite edgy. You may end up offending how people actually interpret the joke, for example. Or you may mock at someone, or you may say something like, that's not the best frequency for you in to practice spirituality according to scriptures. Nor the other extreme, when you are extremely sad, for example. Okay, then it goes to the other end. You sit there and you actually cry, you have palpitations and everything. Scriptures say even that is not. The very word yoga means, one definition Krishna himself gives in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, is samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam means equilibrium. Equilibrium of the mind is known as yoga, Krishna says. So the humility here, reason why it's emphasized is humility is yoga. Humility is when everything is in perfect balance, when you can perform optimally. Just like when your stomach is full, that's not the best time to sit and discuss something intellectual. Blood gets pulled, naturally you'll feel a little drowsy, you will end up sleeping basically. At the same time, we can't starve either, but you have to eat starvishly, so the body metabolism still goes on, but you can still reserve a maximum amount of energy for you to, for your thinking capacity. Basically it's like that. Like, same way, if you are totally tired, that's not the best time for you to think, study, or anything. Early in the morning, mind is actually very fresh. Okay, you can do something much more productive if you're a morning person, for example. So same way, just like even in material sense, we have that certain time of the day which is very conducive, certain time, certain environment, certain state of your body is conducive. Similarly, for consciousness, this word dainyata or amanitvam or humility is used. Humility means everything is in perfect balance, perfect equilibrium, which means what's a given there is, physically you are doing everything right. You have taken enough rest, you have given yourself enough break, you are not overwhelmed with anything. Okay, physically, mentally also, you are in a position wherein you are taking things as they are. You are not completely indifferent, nor are you completely elated. That balance. The reason why I'm saying is, this quality of the consciousness matters, and it determines what you can see, how clearly you can see, how precisely you can see. Okay, sometimes if I tell you something, you may say I see. I see here doesn't literally mean you are seeing it. I see, you are saying it to say tell me, yeah, I understand that. Understand? So scriptures also use same word. Pashyan api na pashyati. Pashyati means to see, but actually that's not seeing. It's understanding. In that context, it's actually used. But the other definition of pashyati also means your consciousness will determine what you see. See in the sense physically, see in the sense even using your mind's eye, or internally what you actually see. So that's why the emphasis, greater emphasis, actually given. We can bring the world's best tools, what we call as tools, experiments, and everything in modern science. In yogic parlance, if you actually see, they call it sadhana. Okay, chanting japa is one sadhana, for example. Deity worship is another sadhana. Pranayama is another sadhana, like that. But these tools will actually work. Tools are like techniques, if you like, but the techniques will work only to a certain extent with our gross body and gross senses. A major portion of those tools work inside us. Now,
Okay.
that is something you can explain to a certain word, certain way. One point I liked, which you mentioned, is this itself is a very complex science, and somebody had actually experienced it. But if it is a science means, then they have to be able to prove, they should be able to, it should work for everyone, no matter how many times. They say to call some science is a fact, it should be experientially verified, or it should be repeatable. The results should be observable. They have certain parameters before you call something as a bona fide science, right? So same way, bhakti is also a science. Bhakti's result is also repeatable. It is observable. But in order to be able to repeat, in order to be able to observe, unlike modern science, because you are dealing with Panchabhuta, which is something which you can see, you can show to people. With spiritual science, again, by definition, it is spiritual, it's not material. Okay. And because it is spiritual, which means you need to have the tool, you need to have the knowledge, you need to have certain literacy there in order to be able to see that result. When they found the black hole, I was watching, black hole looked dark, but I remember watching black hole in Interstellar, where they actually show. And then the same person who actually who was the consultant, I think, for the Interstellar, theoretical physicist, I think, he came and he explained that both are correct. What they took as a photo using the telescope and what they actually showed in the movie, it's just a different angle. And then he compares both and he actually shows, actually they look the same. Okay, so again, even seeing is not believing. Somebody has to explain. Knowledge comes into picture again. Until I watched that reel or shot, whatever it is, I thought, like, but they look different. Why do they say, this is a very accurate, depiction? It's not. But actually, then he shows, and then it looks like, okay, it looks similar. You can actually accept it. So my point is more with, even as a science, bhakti, because we are dealing with something spiritual, which is not material, it cannot be shown on a projector. If people approach spirituality with that viewpoint, it's not going to happen. It won't happen. There has to be some common ground. And the common ground, only I'm saying here, it can be experienced, it can be repeated, it can be observed, provided you don't stay as an outsider. You need, to borrow the same example, you need to go to space. Now, if you think, no, if I have to go to space to actually see it, I'm not interested, then, scriptures also have their attitude. We also don't give a damn, get lost. We are not interested in you either. If you want to know, this argument came once. Prabhupada said, you see, modern scientists may say what they say alone is correct and we are wrong. Then we say, like, fine, you keep your belief and we'll keep ours. Just like you are not interested to know us, we are also not interested to know you, period. Why do we, many times people ask, why isn't scriptures not able to, convince modern science? We don't need to. Scriptures has been there since long. A modern theory has just come now. Day after tomorrow, something will change. We don't need to. And sometimes question comes about, why are the figures different? Why Vedic cosmology says something different, the modern scientists say something different. Well, I think same question should be thrown both the sides, not just to, it's almost always like, this is non-scientific and that alone is scientific. When I keep coming back to the same point, not even one line in Vedas have been proven wrong. Forget about proving correct. Let's put it aside. Let's assume that we don't have a technology. Fair enough. Let modern science prove at least one statement wrong. I think that's easy. Finding fault is easy. Until they are able to even do that, and you want me to give it up, you want me to believe that, this is yet another belief. Excuse me, I need to have a big leap of faith in order to believe that statement. I came across one meme. It was very funny about God. If I come across that, I'll show you. Maybe I'll be able to. Once again, I'll read. It was so funny. Oh yeah, got it. To be an atheist, I would have to believe four things, he says. To be an atheist, I would have to believe. First point, nothing produced everything. Second one, non-life produced life. Randomness produced precision. And chaos produced order. And then conclusion, I simply do not have that much faith. So point here is, yes, you may say, show it, you cannot proving it, so you have to be wrong. That is biased. Just because you don't have the tool to be able to observe what the others are actually saying, and you, because of that, you conclude, this got to be just belief based, there's no science in it. That's biased. Whereas scriptures do allow experiential exercise also. It's just that experience, in order for you to go through, you need to follow the technology, you need to follow the rules. And as I said, state of our consciousness matters, which unfortunately modern science doesn't seem to agree. The classical example is most of the scientists you see, or not, I mean, I don't want to make a blanket statement. Many scientists who are successful, who are celebrated as the greatest minds of 20th and 21st century, they had illegal affair. Okay, they were, on a moral side, I'm saying, but it didn't affect their science. It didn't affect the outcome of, their experiments or outcome of their work, which means there's a clear demarcation between how you lead yourself, the state of your consciousness, versus what you deal with it on a physical state. They are two different things completely, which is fine. But in terms of scriptures, that's the first challenge scriptures would say, basically. If you have to actually understand the science, then it's not just enough that you can see, you can hear, you can smell, taste, touch. You need to have your mind at a certain frequency with a certain level of purity, because that is going to determine. I just gave a crude example where I said, when you are disturbed, even you have the best dish right in front of you, you may taste it, you may do it only on a physical level. You won't relish it with your mind as much as you do at a normal time. So even though you are eating it, doing it, a day later when somebody asked you, go back to your school, hey, how was the dish they gave you yesterday? Really, I didn't even feel like it. I didn't even realize I ate that. We say like that, understand? So even reality we don't see just with gross senses. Even though we don't place much emphasis on that, we actually use our subtle senses so much more than what we acknowledge or what we even believe. Just like when somebody dies, people say he passed away. What passed away? Body is still there. What passed away? But we are so used to it because intuitively we know there's something else, some force, soul, something inside that has gone, that made that body behave the way it is now, basically. Okay, so many things, even scientists, they actually agree, but they just don't openly agree. Because once you do that, many people, even modern times I've come across, people say, oh, I'm an atheist. But then let's say if they go on a flight is going to crash. Oh my God, where is God coming from now? So people don't really mean what they say. I've come across that instances so many times, especially among university kids. They say, I'm an atheist. Modern days, people say I'm an atheist simply because they don't want to be accountable for their moral behavior to anyone. Okay, I'll watch pornography. I'll actually have affair with a trillion people. I'll have sex with so many people. I'll kill animals. I'll do whatever that I actually like. I'm an atheist. Means don't ask me. I'm not going to be accountable for anything like that.
I see that that had very interesting points to think about. I want to ask that when we talk about going in a particular direction, how do we know that we are going in the right direction?
Good question.
Yeah.
Just like I said, in Bhakti, there are 9 stages. For each stage, there is a clear litmus test and there is a clear checkpoint. Like if you go from, I'll give you example. Like first stage of Bhakti, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. For each, for Bhakti, it is said, once somebody takes up Bhakti Yoga, they will realize 2 symptoms. Kleshagni, Shubhada. Kleshagni means, let's say you go through depression. And this is something I can tell you based on my experience. And I have taught this to so many people. It's based on their experience. And it works for everyone also. At least no one has come back to me and told, it made my life miserable. Not like that. Now, why it works, how it works, let's not go there. I'm just telling you some examples here. Which is, first step it's given, if somebody takes up Bhakti, the very first effect is Kleshagni. Kleshagni means whatever that has been disturbing you, causing you so much anxiety and depression and everything, it will get terminated. And you can bring anyone with any level of difficulty. I can prove that if they follow this sincerely in the prescribed dosage that's actually given, it will work 100%. And as I said, I have experienced myself and I have actually taught it to others. So I'm saying, so you are asking like this, even as you progress for each stages and steps, there are symptoms with which you can actually gauge, okay, I'm actually heading in the right direction. For example, one symptom that's actually given is tears, but the tears is not normal tears. Normally, when you have tears, you touch the tears, you will actually feel it's quite warm, correct? When you are angry. But this tears is actually given specifically. You will shed the tears, but the nature of this tears will be it will be cold. Now that's not something you can artificially produce. No matter how much you try, you spray glycerin, still you will get only warm tears. I've tried that, just to play the skeptic. Okay, so like that, there are symptoms that are actually given. It said that you will lose taste in, like, for things which you are actually so far, whatever you can pick up the thing which you think is something you can never live without. Okay, something which it's bad, could be smoking, drinking, drugs, this, that, or anything. You try everything else, but then you come to bhakti, you practice it, you'll be able to give up effortlessly.
Okay.
So I'm just giving few things here. Like that, for each stage, there are symptoms, there are KPIs, and there are things which you can actually observe.
Okay.
Not only yourself, we can actually make it up. People around you also can observe. As I said, it's the same science that works for everyone.
Okay.
Like if you bring anybody who is practicing bhakti, I can ask them a few set of questions, or I can observe them, and I can tell you, approximately which of the stage they are in. And definitely they are in the first 5 stages only. Most of them, they are in the first 5 stages only, like that. So um, to answer your question, how do I know I'm heading in the right direction? Exactly same as how Ayurveda works. The way how Ayurveda works is, basically there's only three: mucus, bile, and air within the body. Whenever it goes imbalance one of them, it causes sickness in the body.
Okay.
Now, the way how Ayurveda treatment works is, you go to the doctor, and you first thing the doctor would actually do is he will test the pulse. He or she will test your pulse. Okay, they'll test the pulse based on their knowledge about how the pulse is. They will ask you questions. That's the second test. First test is with the pulse itself. They will decipher their pulse is like this, which means this is the ailment they are going through. But in order to double check whether their diagnosis is right, they will then ask you questions. Okay, how is your sleeping habit? Do you have indigestion? Do you have other things? So first test is they tested the pulse, with which they'll actually match with their database based on their experience. Second thing, based on that, they will then cross check it by asking you about symptoms.
Okay.
When your symptoms, which you actually say matches with their diagnosis based on their experience, then they will say, okay, this is the issue. They won't actually inject any needle. They won't actually put a thermometer in your mouth. They'll immediately give you medicine and you move on, basically.
Okay.
Okay, and it works like a charm. Same thing I'm saying, even with the bhakti, there are certain symptoms. If you practice the process properly, everyone goes through exactly same experience in their own way, but the common symptoms are there because scriptures are very, very clear. For example, um, if somebody is a spiritualist technically, and if they are following Sanatana Dharma, they won't worship Buddha. Okay, have you wondered, even though Buddha appeared in India, there's no Buddha temple there.
Yeah.
And the reason why it doesn't, nobody worships Buddha is, it's given in the scriptures itself. Because Buddha, when he came, okay, taking a step back, what we study in our history book as Prince Siddhartha, he was there, born and brought up in a very affluent environment. His father had actually hidden him away from, worldly frailties. So this prince grew up thinking this world is a heaven. Nobody grows old, nobody dies, everyone is having a good time. This is what he thought. Until one fine day, he ventured out of the four walls. And then he realized he saw a dead body. Then he started questioning about, life. And then he waited in his home until his son was born. His son's name was Rahul. And the day his son was born, he just left to the forest. And he sat in meditation, attained enlightenment under a Gaya, in Gaya, under a Bodhi tree. This is the history we study.
Okay.
This is Prince Siddhartha. Normally, Buddha means you go Google, find in Wikipedia. This is not the Buddha that's mentioned in Dasavatar.
Okay.
This is not Vishnu. Vishnu means he's God. God doesn't go through confusion like how Prince Siddhartha went through. Okay, God knows the reality. This is a question I always had. If he is God, how can it be? He went through a period of confusion, just like how I did. How can he be God? I was very confused with that. Until I came across a reference which clearly says this Buddha that we study in history books, he appeared 200 years, roughly 200, 300 years prior to Jesus Christ, about 2300 years ago. And the Buddha, which we study as part of Dashavatar, he appeared 3000 years ago, 700 years before the Prince Siddhartha, history book Siddhartha we study. Now, even though this more famous Buddha is a follower of that Buddha, so teachings he shared exactly the same, but this is not the avatar of Vishnu, which we normally, because if you look at Dasavatar, there is Buddha's name, it's not. Okay, so that's first point. Second point is, even that avatar of Vishnu, who is Buddha, you won't see people worshipping. And the reason why he is not worshipped is when he came, at that time there was indiscriminate animal killing in the name of scriptures, because scriptures do allow you to do animal sacrifice. You can kill a cow, kill a horse, kill a goat. It's given there, but then you have to revive them also. That's people usually don't talk about the second half, only the first half they talk. Oh, I can kill and eat. It's not indiscriminate. There was no slaughterhouse in Vedic times. Okay, if I want to eat meat, I have to go, I have to kill, I have to catch hold of a goat, I have to kill it. But this whole experience of having to deal with this blood, flesh and everything will make me think, hey, I'm actually inflicting pain, I don't want to eat this more. Okay, so people will go through that and they'll do. Whereas modern times, people outsource everything. Factory farming, one guy does, it gets transported to slaughterhouse, abattoir, it gets killed somewhere, somebody else transports, somebody packs, somebody cooks, it just comes to your dining table, you eat. This is not Vedic concept. Vedic times, whoever kills, whoever eats, they will actually kill and they will eat. The idea there is, it was limited and people know exactly what they are doing, and it will allow them to come out of that habit soon. Okay, that's the idea. Now, this Buddha, when he came 3000 years ago, at that time there was indiscriminate animal killing. It was in Kali Yuga. People started, because whenever they feel like eating, they quoted scriptures and they started to kill. So Buddha took pity on animals. He appeared. The mission of Buddha was simply to stop animal killing. But he didn't come for any other huge spiritual reason. Okay, Vishnu took avatar as Buddha simply to stop indiscriminate animal killing. That's all, nothing else. This is according to scriptures itself. Dasavatar Stotra you can read. Anywhere where mention of Buddha is there in the scriptures you read, it said clearly he came simply to stop animal killing. That's it, nothing else. So he came, he told people, don't kill. Their point is, but it's mentioned in the Vedas. We are following the Vedas. Buddha then says, forget about Vedas. Vedas are just some hocus pocus. They don't exist. And then people followed him because he was quite influential. He was able to actually convince them, okay, with his wisdom, with moral principles and everything. But the fundamental basis on which he based his argument is scriptures are wrong. Reject them, just to follow this. Now, because Buddha rejected the Vedas, when God even comes and rejects the Vedas, devotees reject even God. Because according to scriptures, the source of truth is always scriptures only. Okay, three sources of truth is given. One is Guru, second is Sadhu, third is Shastra. Guru is spiritual master. Sadhu means anyone who practices a proper spiritual sadhana is a sadhu. Generally, we think sadhu means holy man. No, it can be anybody. Even you are a sadhu if you are practicing properly, even wherever you are. Okay. Sadhu means whoever who practices a spiritual sadhana properly with the proper discipline. Guru means one who has taken one step further to take the responsibility to guide other people. That's Guru. Whereas Sadhu can just live by themselves. That's the primary difference. Okay. So Guru is one proof, Sadhu is another. But then Guru can be a pseudo Guru, false Guru, bogus Guru also. Correct? Sadhu also can be bogus. How do we know who is a proper Guru and who is a bogus Guru? How do we know whether somebody is a Sadhu versus somebody who is somebody who is just a godman, pseudo person or quasi godman, whatever? So again, you go back to the third source of truth, which is Shastra again, scriptures again. So scriptures clearly say if somebody is a guru, these are the parameters. Okay, these are the characteristics they need to have. These are the checkpoints they need to have. Firstly, they need to have their own guru. Nobody is a self-made guru. This whole idea of self-made guru isn't actually accepted in Vedic times. Okay, original guru is Krishna. Somehow it has to go. You can come through different parampara, but it has to go. Your guru, his guru, his guru, his guru. Like that, it has to go all the way to Krishna. If it's not, then it's not a bona fide sampradaya. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, even if somebody is a guru, There are certain characteristics that are given about a guru. Titik Shava, they have to be tolerant. They can't be. There is no non-vegetarian guru. It doesn't exist.
Okay.
Titik Shava means they have to be tolerant. Karunika means they have to be merciful. Like that, it's given. They need to do a proper sadhana, so on and so forth. Likewise, for sadhu also, there are qualities, characteristics that are given. They need to match that. But source of truth is always scriptures. Same thing holds true even for avatars also. If somebody claims themselves to be, I'm this avatar, I'm Kalki avatar, there's already too many Kalki avatars. But according to scriptures, there is still another 427,000 years more, or 427,000 years more before Kalki will appear, according to scriptures.
Okay.
Okay, so till that point, we have to live with so many different avatars. Anyway, we can manage. So, so point is, even if somebody is an avatar, how do we understand whether somebody is an avatar? Go back to the book again. Scriptures again. So, scriptures is the source of truth. There is a very famous Christian pastor, I think North Point Church, Andy Stanley. I don't know if you have come across this
No,
person.
sir.
Very influential speaker. I take a lot of inspiration from him. Very brilliant speaker. Now
Could you repeat the name, please?
Andy Stanley.
Okay.
He's a motivational speaker as well. You can watch his podcasts.
Okay.
ANDYSTANLEY.
Okay.
His presentation will be brilliant because they are fiddled with the different versions of Bible so many times that even as a pastor, he says, look, this Bible has been fiddled with so much. So my faith is not based on this book. My faith is based on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He got crucified on Good Friday and he resurrected on Easter Monday, 3 days later, when he rose from the dead. And that has been witnessed by people. And it's those people who in turn acted as teachers. They taught their students. So to me, my faith is actually based on Jesus rising from the dead, not on the books, because books have already been tampered with too many times. Okay, he'll say it openly. Now he's one of the most brilliant speakers, very influential Christian pastor, basically. Now, same argument you can't put for Vedic scriptures, because Vedic scriptures is like modular programming. There's a lot of cross-referencing. You can't fiddle with one and leave loose ends in another. It's not possible. There are like millions of verses. It's practically impossible for you to tamper one and not be caught in the other, because every Purana, every scripture is actually referred in other places. Krishna speaks about Bhagavad Gita in Bhagavata Puran to his friend. And Krishna says, I have my cousin Arjuna. He was confused. I spoke this science to him. He says there. Now, if somebody goes and fiddles with Bhagavad Gita saying Krishna didn't speak, Arjuna spoke, you can go and checkmate. Look what it's mentioned here.
Okay.
You understand that? So everywhere, that's how it is. So every different, you go to Shiva Purana, there's mention of Lord Kartikeya, Lord Kartik. You go to Skanda Puran, where Lord Kartik is glorified, Shiva is mentioned. You go to Shiva Puran, you will find again references to Vishnu. You go to Vishnu Puran, Krishna will be mentioned. So you simply can't trace it back all the way and do a control F, replace all. It's not possible. Okay, so scriptures, coming back to the point, is the source of truth. Even for God. When avatar comes, avatar also need to be mentioned in the scriptures. Now, Buddha is mentioned in the scriptures as avatar. That's why we still agree that he's one of the avatars. However, we don't worship Buddha because Buddha rejected Vedas. So point here is, forget about modern day gurus accepting scriptures. Even if God comes and doesn't accept scripture, we reject that God. That's why Buddha is not worshipped. So scriptures are always the source of truth. Understand? So for us to understand the knowledge in spirituality, for us to practice spirituality, everything is documented and everything is actually been followed. There are people who have followed this, mastered this science, and they can actually do things which we can't. But we can actually go follow the same process, and we can tick it. Yes, this symptom is working for me. This symptom is working for me. Based on that, we can assess, okay, this is the stage that I am in, and then keep working. Now, I've been practicing for what, 18, 19 years now. If you ask me, were you going through struggle initially? Definitely yes. Are you perfect now? No. But do you see difference between how you were then to where you are now? Absolutely yes. Now, were you able to progress very, very fastly? No, it depended on, there are people who started with me, but they progress much more faster than me because they are more sincere, more disciplined. And I'm less disciplined. I'm actually doing, I would say myself as average.
Okay.
Okay, like that. So you can assess, you can clearly see the symptoms, you can clearly see the process, you can clearly follow the KPIs. That way to understand what stage am I in, what stage other person in. This will help me protect myself from getting cheated by other people. Okay, if a modern day guru comes and says, I will tell him based on these criteria or not guru, period. I won't waste my time.
Okay.
I can take you as a motivational speaker.
Okay.
Okay, I respect, not a problem. I can take you as an environmentalist. I can take you as someone who is a philanthropist, no problem. But as a spiritual guru, sorry, no, because you didn't tick the box.
Okay.
Okay, like that. And many times, even so called modern gurus, they also don't know. And they very confidently say, sorry, I haven't read Bhagavad Gita. I haven't read any book. Then, dude, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
Don't claim yourself as a spiritualist because scriptures just don't entertain that kind of approach, because
Okay.
humans by nature has a cheating propensity. So scriptures say, don't trust your mind, don't trust even other humans. Even a guru is considered as a guru only as long as they be the mouthpiece of what is given in the scriptures.
Okay.
Okay, so anything outside of that, it's practically impossible. Like, nobody can mislead the people. Nobody can. They asked this to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, what will happen if this movement ISKCON crumbles down at some point in future? Prabhupada says, no problem. I have given everything in my books. In future, whoever comes reads with an open mind, they will build it from the scratch,
Okay.
because it's the scriptures that is the basis. Scriptures is the basis for deity worship. Scriptures is the basis of Vedic architecture. It is the basis for Ayurveda. It is basis for everything. Yoga, bhakti, jnana, everything source comes down to that knowledge aspect only.
I
Okay, but
see.
in Hinduism, because anything goes, unfortunately, nobody understood that, and nobody placed emphasis. As much as it is very heartening to see so much renewed interest, especially among the youth in spirituality, to the same extent, I feel sorry for them, because anything and everything goes in the name of spirituality. It causes a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
Recently, I was watching one video of Simon Sinek, famous
Yes,
motivational
heard of
speaker.
him.
He was saying he has a friend who runs a shoe stall, and he told him after many years of experience, he understood how to sell a pair of shoes. And he was telling, if a customer comes and he says, I would like to try these two pair set of shoes, please bring. So he takes the two. They try one pair, put it aside, they try another pair, and they are not satisfied with either. Now they look for the third option, just like glancing, and they say, oh, can I have a look at that one? Now, before this person goes and picks the third pair, he would ask the customer, sure, I will bring you the third pair, but tell me, of these two that you have here, which which is the one you are most likely not to take at all. Then they would say, that one I will never, I don't like it. Then he would go replace that one with this new set.
Okay.
Okay, so the one which they said they won't take it, he will go put it back in the shelf and bring the other one which they pointed at. Again, they would try,
Okay.
and if they still don't like it, even with the new pair, now they have two with them. Third one has already gone back, and they will point at something else. Can you please bring me that? Again, the friend would actually ask the customer, "Fine, I will go bring it, but tell me of these two that you have right in front of you, which is the one you don't like?" And they would point at that one I don't like. He will go replace it, get the other one. And Simon Sinek says his friend told him, with this, there is 100% selling rate, basically.
Hmm.
And his experience taught him, when you give more than two options to people, they get overwhelmed and they never buy anything. They end up buying nothing. So he says our mind can actually process two, probably three, not more than that. People talk about multitasking, but even according to people who have done research in that will actually tell you, if you have five tasks to do, the best way to do is, you are much better off rather to spend a good chunk of time in each one after the other, than trying to do all the five tasks in an hour, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, go to the next hour again, 20, 20, 20. It may work for the CPU, but we are not actually meant to work like that. Okay, so reason I'm saying is too many options. Everyone just bombards, but you can just have a good laugh when you look at many of the videos. Most of the videos, unfortunately, as I said, there are many modern gurus. I have a lot of deep appreciation for what they do for the environment, for the people. So many things they actually do, but spirituality, finding permanent solution for life's intriguing questions. Sorry, I have to call spade a spade, but I try not to mention their names as much as possible. For I think some basic etiquette need to be followed, unless somebody like comes and asks, "Hey, is this what they are doing?" Like that. As I said, you can respect them for their age. You can respect them for. I mean, they are good people at the end of the day, and most of them they themselves may not know. Being ignorant is not a crime. It's fine. It's okay. They are themselves saying, "I haven't read." Okay, I can pity you. If I see you, I'll give you Bhagavad Gita. Read. Even I don't know. Like
Okay.
that.